welcome back to another review. Today we are looking at the Safari Ltd 2021 Baryonyx. This is a fairly highly anticipated figure, at least for me. I think other people were anticipating it a lot as well. This is just a genus that I've been waiting for Safari to make a figure of for years. I've been predicting that they'd do a Baryonyx for a long time and hoping for one, mainly because even though there are some other decent figures of Baryonyx out there, none of them felt definitive, none of them felt like a proper representation of the actual animal. And this one undoubtedly does. This is the best Baryonyx figure on the market, and I'm just really impressed. It's everything that I expected and wanted from a good new Safari theropod figure and a Safari Baryonyx. So let's just get straight into it. As always, if you are interested in this or any Safari Ltd product, you can go to safariltd.com or amazon.com/Safari Ltd, and you can use coupon code BIONIC to get 15% off of any order. Not 15% off of car insurance, that's the get-go. The first thing that really stands out to me about this Safari Baryonyx, I can't believe I'm saying, this feels surreal. I've been waiting for a Safari Baryonyx for so long, it actually feels surreal that I'm finally reviewing one, and a really good one at that. But anyhow, the first thing that really stands out to me about this figure is the overall shape and silhouette of the figure. It's in a pretty standard walking pose, but it's just one of those poses that looks really believable and has this really dynamic kind of fluidity to it, particularly the overall curve of, you know, this sort of S-curve to the neck, all the way down to the tail and the way the tail really flicks up like that. I love that, just the overall shape of it. It looks so alive and alert, and it's just a great looking figure. It looks good from all angles as well. It's just a great design for a theropod figure. Another thing I really like is the coloration. The colors are super simple. It is basically just brown, and that's kind of it, but I like it. It looks naturalistic, it looks kind of earthy and just believable as the coloration of a real animal that lives in a real gritty environment somewhere out in the real world. And some of the small details they added to it, like these little patterns, kind of remind me of almost like a yellow anaconda or something like that. And I do think they actually really add something, simple as they may be. As long as we're talking about coloration, I'm gonna take this opportunity to bring up some potential issues I have with the paint work on this figure. The paint overall is not applied super cleanly. Now, I don't mind a little bit of messiness here and there. There's some kind of darker brown, sort of lightly stained across a lot of the figure that I think adds a really nice sort of intentional dirtiness to it. Again, it adds to that sort of realistic, kind of gritty look. It makes it look really aged and just like a real animal that has been out in the dirt and the mud surviving and such. So I don't mind that at all, but there are some parts of the paint application and some of the more detail requiring areas of the sculpt that are kind of pretty sloppy. The first one I'm gonna show here is on this hand. You can see that quite a lot of the gray paint from the claws has actually been smeared up onto the fingers as well. That's kinda rough looking. I can't think of too many other Safari figures that have paint application on their claws that sloppy, and it's a bit of a shame to see. The other one that I want to bring up, the other issue here, is with the teeth. You can see on this side, the teeth are pretty much fine. There's like a tiny little bit of white up on the lips, but nothing too visible. However, on the other side of the face, the white comes up onto the actual snout fairly far. It doesn't look too bad on camera, but in person, it is somewhat bothersome. It's not a huge deal. You know, these are not huge detracting issues, and they are basically my only issues I actually have with this entire figure. But it's still a shame to see that. I wish this figure was just a little bit more on point in terms of how clean the paint work is and how consistent the quality control is. I do have some compliments for some of the paint work though. I really like the eyes on this figure. They're very glossy and look very genuine and just alive. I think they're very well done. And I also really like the color of the eyes. They're almost just yellow, but they have this ever so slight sort of greenish tint to them that I think really adds something and just looks really good. They almost have kind of a metallic quality for some reason. I think it looks really good. The nostrils are also glossy, which is a really nice minor detail that I'm glad to see included. There's also a glossy finish to the interior of the mouth, and as well, you can see there are nasal openings included in the roof of the mouth on this figure, which is pretty impressive given how thin the snout of Baryonyx is. It's really great to see that extra effort put in there. There's also some very, very subtle red coloration around the crest. I'm not even sure you'll be able to see it on camera, but it is there. The sculpted detail on this figure is also pretty well put together for the most part. It's not perfectly consistent. There are some minor sort of smooth or smudged areas, but considering how small the scales of this figure are, I think that's pretty forgivable, and I think the detail looks pretty crisp and fairly consistent for the most part. As far as accuracy is concerned, this does certainly appear to be a very accurate reconstruction of the genus of Baryonyx. I have nothing negative to say in terms of accuracy, but I do have a couple little notes that I just find interesting. For one, the nostrils are much further down on the snout than normal with Spinosaurids. Most Spinosaurid reconstructions, you see the nostrils really high up on the snout. I'm not sure why that is. I'm tempted to say it's inaccurate, but I'm going to have faith in the sculptor and assume that they had a good reason for doing this. And it's not out of the realm of plausibility at all, because the placement of nasal openings on a skull does not necessarily correspond to the placement of nostrils on the living animal. Also, much like the Displetosaurus, another interesting little accuracy note here that it shares with that figure is the lack of large sort of scales or scutes on the digits. Those sorts of scutes and scales are typically included on a lot of dinosaur figures because birds have them, and also because they look cool, I imagine. But there's no real evidence that non-avian dinosaurs would have had them, because in birds, I believe they are actually de-evolved feathers. So it's cool to see that those are actually not included here, much like, again, on the Displetosaurus as well. That is everything I have to say, I think. I'm gonna be giving this one a 9.5 out of 10. Here is the Displetosaurus, here's the 2019 Spinosaurus, and as always, here is the Eutyrannus for a little size comparison. There you go, that's pretty much it. I highly recommend this one. I think this is definitely a contender for my favorite figure from Safari this year, although the Displetosaurus is really, really close to it. I love both of them quite a lot, and I recommend both of them very highly. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you go out and pick up some of these awesome new figures from Safari, and I will see you all next time.